Labour has now been in power for 18 months and the mask has completely slipped. What we're seeing isn't traditional Labour, it's something far more radical, globalist and disconnected from the working class. Old Labour built the NHS and council houses for British workers. Current Labour cuts winter fuel payments for pensioners, opened the borders even wider, and pushes net zero policies that hammer ordinary families with higher bills. Behind it all sits the Fabian Society, quietly steering the party for over a century, their strategy of gradual, hidden socialism. Starmer isn't running the country. He's a puppet for that same Fabian machine. Today, we're exposing how different modern Labour is from its roots, who really pulls the strings, and why this government feels so alien to ordinary Brit. We're doing a full 18-month review of Starmer's Labour's government and contrasting it with actual history of old Labour. We'll look at the broken promises, the shift from the working class, the Fabian Society, long-term infiltration of the party, and how they operate in the shadows through grandiloquism and premeditation, and why Keir Starmer is best understood as a control puppet rather than a genuine leader of the Labour movement. If you've ever wondered why this Labour government feels like it's working against its own voters, this will all lay it out for you. 18 months into Starmer's term, and almost every major promise has been broken or quietly reversed. They ran on change and stability, but what we got was higher taxes on working people, winter fuel payment cuts that hit pensioners the hardest, record small boat crossings that show no sign of slowing down, and an NHS crisis that feels even worse than under the Tories. Energy bills are still punishing families, housing remains completely unaffordable for young Brits, and migration is running at levels that make the last Conservative government look restrained. This isn't just incompetence or bad luck, it's deliberate policy. The voters who gave Labour its massive landslide in 2024 were largely working class people in the red ball seats who wanted an end to the chaos. Instead, they got a government that lectures them about climate while their heating bills go through the roof, and that prioritises international students and asylum hotels over British families. The winter fuel payment cut was the moment a lot of traditional Labour voters realised this party no longer represents them. It's not the Labour Party their grandparents voted for, it's a different creature entirely, one that seems to view the white working class as an scale rather than its core base. Old Labour under Clement Attlee after the war actually built things for British workers: the NHS, council housing, nationalising industries, and a welfare state that was designed to support the people who had fought and worked hard for Britain. Even under Harold Wilson and James Callaghan, the party still had a strong roots in trade unions, the industrial heartlands, and a belief in protecting British jobs and national sovereignty. They argued about nationalisation, private versus private enterprise, but they never celebrated mass low-skilled immigration that undercut wages or pushed policies that deliberately deindustrialise entire regions. Compare that today. Starmer's Labour has ditched class politics for identity politics. They champion open borders, net zero at any cost, and diversity quotas that the very communities that built the Labour movement are left behind. Old Labour would have been horrified by the scale of demographic change and the way it has strained housing, schools and the NHS. They believe in improving conditions for British workers, not importing a new electorate or prioritising globalist agendas. The shift didn't happen overnight, but under Blair, Brown and now Starmer it has become total. This is an evolution of the Labour Party. It's a hostile takeover of the name and branding while abandoning everything the party once stood for. The Fabian Society was founded in 1884 with the explicit goal of gradually introducing socialism through infiltration rather than revolution. Their symbol is literally a wolf in sheep's clothing. That should tell you everything. They rejected violent upheaval and instead believed the best way to transform society was to promote existing institutions from the inside: the civil service, universities, media, and above all, the Labour Party. For over 140 years, The Fabians have been the hidden hand guiding Labour policy. They pioneered the strategy of permeation, solely influencing decision makers without ever being the public face. Key figures like Sidney and Beatrice Webb, George Bernard Shaw, and later Tony Blair's mentors all came out of this network. They understood the real power comes from shaping the ideas that politicians adopt, not from winning every election. Starmer is the latest product of this machine. He didn't rise through genuine working-class politics or trade routes. He was groomed through the Fabian-linked think tanks, legal circles, and globalist networks. This explains why modern Labour feels so alien to its voters. The real ideology comes from the Fabians' gradualist approach. Erode national identity, expand the administrative state, open borders, and slowly shift power away from the British people toward international institutions and NGOs. Starmer isn't the leader making independent decisions, he's the puppet. The Fabian Society and its networks provide long-term strategy, the legal policy frameworks, and the ideological direction. The public sees Starmer on TV. Behind the scenes, the same old Fabian machine is steering the ship towards the same destination it's always wanted. A transformed Britain where traditional national loyalties are weakened and a new managerial elite holds the reins. Starmer isn't the leader of Labour, he's the latest frontman for the Fabian century-long project. So anyway guys, hope you enjoyed this video about me talking about the Fabian Society and how they control Labour. Now obviously people would say that old Labour, even then, probably back then, were probably even more left-leaning, but I would actually say that even with old Labour, as I've actually spoken with few people who are like ex-Tories, or even people at events I've spoken to, where they've actually said even old Labour was completely different from what it is now, and you can actually see it, all of the erosion, all the culture is just slowly dying, and the Fabian Society is controlling it. Now obviously there is other aspects of this and other groups of interest, you know, obviously the US administration influencing UK politics, and obviously to do with the Zionism there, but I think it's more of a case that there are other groups that have within their own interests, and obviously you can have like a conspiratorial spin on that, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that a lot of the time that when little groups form, especially when it comes down to, I guess, socialism, which is based on Marxism, and obviously people could say Karl Marx was obviously Jewish, but it was more in a case of how to control and subvert so hard that you literally just wreck societies, but all of that subversion is literally ingrained in people that they basically don't even question it. And obviously I think things are getting even worse now, to the point where people are waking up and people are actually seeing this, but obviously the dent and damage that's happened from societies, especially all the subversion that has been pushed, and especially policy-wise, and especially to do with how free speech is being basically eroded as well, people being arrested for social media posts, and apparently they've supposedly stopped this, the Home Office, I think, if I can remember, which is ironic considering you know, they've been doing it for a while, and to be honest I don't think they're ever going to stop. I mean, even if they do, it'll just be occasional, they just won't be so obvious now, it's compared to obviously the grooming gangs that's still happening, but just probably more under the radar. And as well, if you want to click in the link in the description below, we'll link to my other channels and Discord as well.